This is a short film about Freespace and National Day of Civic Hacking. National Day of Civic Hacking was founded in part by Nick Skitland.
My name is Nick Skitland.
Nick is a rocket scientist at NASA, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration. The new national holiday was all about engaging government agencies
To release challenges and data sets, and then citizens to build on top of that.
Awesome. Now we have a national holiday where government agencies challenge themselves and the general public to solve new problems together. Problems like backyard poultry farming, improved healthcare, smart retirement, education, women veterans, US TPO innovation, donor coordination, and a really long list of a whole lot more. But how are we supposed to do all that in one day? Enter Mike Zuckerman. Mike Zuckerman is not Mark Zuckerberg. Although their names are often confused, they're only the same person in the same way that Justin Timberlake is Banksy. Mike Zuckerman is a self-proclaimed culture hacker. But what is culture hacking? According to Zuckerman, culture hacking is
figuring out ways to take things apart and put them back together in new ways that they haven't been done before, and that's culture hacking.
In anticipation of National Day of Civic Hacking, Mike assembled a team. The initial team was composed of Morgan Fitzgibbons, a community activist with a focus on bike culture, Ilana Lipset, whose focus was community engagement in marginalized areas of the city, Ika Lin, an electrical engineering and computer science major from MIT, brought on to focus on internal communications and community outreach. Hunter Franks had a passion for sharing the positive stories of people who live in neighborhoods often viewed by outsiders as violent and dangerous. Kyle Stewart, founder of Reallocate, whose aim was to get funding to people with innovative ideas. And Owen McMillan, a web app developer who loves technology and storytelling. This team came up with an idea. Hack National Day of Civic Hacking.
The thinking of how we're going to celebrate San Francisco National Day of Civic Hacking is by extending it beyond the first and second, the 48-hour time period, and doing a kickoff starting on Friday evening and continue it all the way through the month of June.
Great idea. How'd you come up with that?
I told Zuck about 100 Days of Spring and the idea of just getting something and just having something every day and not really knowing what's going to happen, but it's really about the community coming in and filling up.
Oh, it was your idea.
Zuck was working on the National Day of Civic Hacking, and it was his idea to be like, this is what we should do for National Day of Civic Hacking, and that was like April 15th. He's like, call me, we gotta talk.
And the plan for Freespace was born. With the idea to hack the day, the question came about, where and how do they do this?
The idea is to get a physical space to house the hackathon for the entire month. And it's only 3 weeks away. We have a lot of people excited about the space, but we don't have an actual space. So that is one of the main top priorities that we're trying to manifest right now.
Then, with the hard work and finagling social skills of Zuckerman, something fantastic, similar to a miracle, went down. A 14,000 square foot building came into the picture as a gift for $1. But why would a landlord rent out their building for $1? Well, really $1 plus a $10,000 security deposit, but let's not nickel and dime the situation. Let's just call it $1. The thought goes like this. If there's an empty building in a city where space is scarce, especially if the building's in a transitional or a challenging neighborhood, a landlord can activate their property by allowing a group to come in and do something hip or awesome there. This calls attention to the real estate and adds to the building's resume. Thus, entrepreneurs and developers have an opportunity to come into the building and picture themselves running a business there. In theory, this helps the landlord lease or sell the property in the future. Pretty trick.
I remember standing outside in the back talking to Tim West, who was here, and Zuck and myself, and just saying, I see what can happen here. I can see it. Like, the only thing standing in our way is rent, and that's bullshit. I was like so pissed. And I still didn't think we could get it, and then, he said, talked to Dave the broker and said, they're going to go for it.
Now in possession of a physical location and the core concept in place, Mike Zuckerman and his team set out on a mission to hack National Day of Civic Hacking into National Month of Civic Hacking. But what is Freespace?
It's a big empty building with people who care. Freespace is a pretty cool open space to do whatever you want in.
I see it as a place for like unrestricted creativity for the community. People from any background, any field can come here and create together.
Freespace is a place for people to get together and work on projects, hackathon, hexayurts, whatever you're working on, come and work on it here.
What is Freespace? Freespace is community-driven space. It is whatever the people who show up here create it to be. But what I've seen is it's an artistic space, a creative space, and a space for social change.
I think one of the most interesting parts of this is actually like us and figuring out this structure of how we operate within a kind of new or boundary-free zone, and how those personalities can mesh together and create something that is a blueprintable, replicatable model. You know, I mean, Occupy was an interesting thing, but they had internal structure that crippled it. You know, and I think like we're not sure what we're gonna do yet, but just working on this with you guys and learning how each other work, and you know, I think that's almost the potentially like greatest thing about it.
I'm appreciative of all the people who came before and kind of paved the way for this kind of thing.
Wait a minute. Time for some history. Coming together to create community has happened before. The True Levelers in 1649, Paris in 1957 with the Situationist Internationale, San Francisco in the 1960s, the Diggers and the Hippies, the Yippies and the Zippies, 1980s Food Not Bombs, 2011 the Occupy movement. While the idea of people coming together autonomously to raise awareness and create social change certainly isn't original, it's always right on time. Okay, sounds good. What is Freespace?
I feel neither welcome nor unwelcome. I feel that it's just a whole lot of people, and I don't know if a lot of them even know why they're here, but they heard about it, so they came to it. So if that's what they want, if they just want a big space with some avant-garde art, and a lot of expression and letting people be free, I guess it works. But I think it's missing a little more structure. Maybe I like a structured environment more. Maybe I'm just a structured environment type of guy.
Some people are here because we're part of this because they have some idea they want to get to market. There's some people who are doing it because they think it'll be good for X, whatever X is. You know, it'll be good for business. It'll be good for the economy. You know, for me, it's like I like it because it's good for education. That's interesting. Do you have an idea of what, aside from? Well, I mean, anarchy is a good thing on its own. But do you have an idea or what most people are after here?
I'm really excited to see what Freespace creates. I think it will be a place for people to come into themselves, for us to really connect, and that connection with each other is so important, because I can't be myself unless I'm around brothers and sisters who I feel like will love and accept me for the way that I'm going to become, because I need that love. I think I've compromised my very inner being to appease people, because I love people and I want people to love me, and because I know that I have to fit into certain social standards in order to be loved, I've compromised myself. And I hope that this space will help me come into a place where I don't need to compromise who I am to be loved.
By its own accounts, Freespace is a space, an empty building. Pretty cool. Whatever you want. Unrestricted creativity, community, a place to work, artistic, a space for social change, interesting, a boundary-free zone, blueprint, good for business, good for education, place to connect, place to be yourself, a place to be loved, uncompromising, safe. To put it simply, Freespace is a temporary space for lasting change. As more and more people started to fill this space, new projects, ideas, and discussions began to take shape. A permaculture garden blossomed in the abandoned parking lot. The Yellow Bike Project started lending out free bikes. Art popped up all over the walls. A learning shelter for homeless people opened its doors. More community engagement, yoga classes, civic hacking, salons. Hackathons were happening on a regular basis now. Groups of people joining conversation about web development, applications, and new ways to share information. Wait a minute. Why am I telling you all this? Let's hear it from them.
Well, initially, when I stumbled across Freespace, I saw this empty parking lot, and my vision was to put a garden there, and so I did that. I partnered up with this woman, Carrie Hughes, who's now my partner on the garden project, and now it's actually 70% hers. I'm there for maintenance and watering, but I've been roped into many other responsibilities at Freespace.
So what we're doing is we're trying to build a garden here using permaculture design principles that will be fully developed and producing optimal produce in 30 days. So I'm from Hayes Valley Farm originally, met up with Freespace folks accidentally the last week of the farm.
All right, so done with that conference call. That was the last national organizer conference call before National Day of Civic Hacking. We're here at Hayes Valley Farm, a beautiful space. It's actually an interesting commentary on urban space that is slated to get put into condos, but there were a few years where it wasn't used, so they turned it into this really amazing farm that unfortunately has to go. So we're going to be urban foraging some of their resources and bringing them over to Freespace.
So we're really excited to come over here and be part of another community creative space. We had a bunch of plants that were just dedicated. We have 60 species of plants that were donated to us by Central Kitchen. Central Kitchen unfortunately lost their kitchen garden and needed a home. And magically at the same day we were looking and ready for plants for the garden. So this garden space, we were just talking about it with a crew of people, is magic. It's almost magic. It's like everything that it needs, it seems to just be attracting to this space. People are bringing it. And sounds dumb, but you know, it's like you build it, they will come kind of thing, you know?
This is about maybe like a fifth of it.
Yeah, that's
so,
how much are we going to bring of it?
As much as we can. I think all
of it. We'll take it.
I think it's important, as someone was saying earlier today in the lectures, by 2050, 80% of the planet is going to be in urban centers and cities, and having them all be concrete jungle simply isn't an option. That doesn't make any sense. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. There's actually been psychological studies where people who spend average of 5 minutes a day in a green environment surrounded by trees or plants, they have dramatically less stress levels, and that makes complete sense to me. It's kind of just the natural state of being. That's what we're humans, we're animals. We need plants. And I mean, there's nothing but good that could come from having a garden. And what we did here, we took this lot that was filled with hypodermic needles and garbage and crap, and we brought in loads of organic material and now it's fertile land. Now there's birds and there's bees, and not biology aside, just the energy it brings to the neighborhood, people that walk by, their experience of walking by is better now. And people who would otherwise not go down the shady-ass alley on Minna Street filled with needles and poop, now people walk down the alleyway all the time, and I would like to see that in more neighborhoods and more places, and see more green spaces.
The bike library was an experiment in civic hacking where we took materials that already existed, so bicycles and parts that from different sources, and got those into a somewhat uniform system with numbers and lights and locks, and were available. Those bikes were then made available to the general public for a 2-day free checkout with lights and locks included. And just allowed people who maybe didn't have a bike or needed a bike for a friend or need to run an errand or whatever the individual need was, we allowed the bikes to fill that need. Bike sharing has existed in a lot of ways, and there are bike libraries that already exist in the world. So there was a little bit of flying by the seat of our pants, a little bit of tapping into the historical precedents that have been set, and just a lot of work, a lot of hard work.
So as you can see, we have a lot of murals here. We had nothing. We had a decrepit land in the middle of an economically failing part of the city. And I guess this is what we're trying to show is if real estate owners are able to give us their land, we're able to beautify it. So it's an issue of urban revitalization. And I guess we believe that as you see more art in the city of San Francisco, people start to take care of their local neighborhood. Maybe they stop littering so much, and maybe they feel safer, and maybe they'll stop maybe just to say hello to each other.
There's not many opportunities for artists to do that here in the city, so having this evolving, rotating mural concept is quite appealing to a lot of different artists on many different levels as well. Just to come and be able to create outside of your studio, outside of a non-commissioned mural, it's really nice to be able to just, you know, proceed your thought process, which having this free space for us is beautiful.
San Francisco-based artist. I started painting on canvas a long time ago, and started to realize that like, the public sphere was changing so much, and the art world was kind of shifting towards public art. And you need to now to contextualize your work in the city that you're from by painting walls. So the more walls, the more I learn about my studio process, and vice versa.
My name is Emily Eisenhardt. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. I've been in the Bay Area for about 4 years. This is a nearly 20-foot tall mural, my first mural that I've ever painted. It's an experimentation of making my art go big. I do a lot of doodles, a lot of line drawings in my notebook just with a black pen. And I've always loved to paint, but I've never painted big. And so I found out about Freespace. One of my passions is like urban activation and activating idle space and really bringing people together in 4 walls. You can really make your own reality, and this is exactly that, but 3 floors.
When I come here, I spend $0, and I'm free to paint and create and be around people who inspire me, and that's happiness to me. So.
Yeah, my name is Michael Covington. This is my art here. Work in progress, started yesterday. It was sort of like the old me, so I'm putting the new me on top of the old me on top of the new me. It's sort of like an evolution of what I do. I want to consider this as a futuristic, in quotation marks, piece. They want to bring the abstract and the fine arts into the street. You know, I don't want to be the first, but I want people to see that there's a different type of street art out there and bringing that to the table.
I got a chance to live in a homeless shelter for 6 months. Kind of a crazy story. I was 2 weeks prior to living in a homeless shelter. I was actually supposed to start a 6-figure job. A couple wrong turns, a couple circumstances, and a little bit of stubborn determination to stay in San Francisco and to make it in a place where, you know, creativity and thought and entrepreneurship and just the startup culture lived and existed was something that I couldn't walk away from, even if it meant doing something which for me was going to be, you know, a big step down and a big risk and a slightly frightening proposition, but I went ahead and took the step. And it's something that I actually thought I was going to keep a secret. When I walked into a homeless shelter on the first day, I didn't think I'd ever be standing here talking about it. I happened to be here because a friend of mine from the startup house, Owen, had actually recommended that I would come by and become a fellow for this awesome hacker project called Freespace, which I accepted gladly. And it kind of relates to the fact that part of what I want to do with this whole maker movement, hacker movement thing is to try to help people that have, you know, become outmoded in certain capacities in their life and somehow found themselves inside of a homeless shelter, to let them have the same experience that I've had.
With Freespace up and running, time was running out. The team decided it was time for a push to raise money in hopes of being able to stay open for another month. But just as things were getting interesting, Zuckerman took off on an ungrounded flight to London.
Hey, it's Mike. I literally just got back from London, had an amazing trip for the British Airways ungrounded flight. They brought 120 innovators from Silicon Valley and brought them to London in kind of a G8 pre-event that was called the G8 Innovation Summit, because they're hosting the G8 in Belfast starting today, actually. So the G8 is the 8 largest economies of the world coming together and talking about innovation and ways to spur economic activity, but also innovation in general. So basically coming together of how do we get people more engaged. And if the goal is engagement, Freespace is clearly working as an engagement tool. And I'm also hoping that it can be not just an ideation of it, but that Freespace can step in and actually do some of these things. We really do believe that giving people space and permission results in innovation. And innovation is about rectifying duality. And that's really what we're trying to represent here at Freespace, is a combination of those two. Of the kind of, you know, the business and academic leaders combined with kind of the cultural leaders. Like right here, I'm showing up tonight, and there's Pop Gang in the house with a bunch of their friends. They're drumming and projection and emceeing and all these different beautiful things happening. And yeah, I haven't slept in weeks, but I'm super excited about it, and I'm back here, and everyone loves it, and I'm just excited to see what we can do to move forward. We have the National Day of Civic Hacking. We have this ungrounded flight that, you know, Freespace is very much a part of, and those things represent the opportunity to have a platform to get the ideas that we're going to manifest out into the world and hopefully get momentum to do more things in the future.
As momentum continued, an explosion of new ideas began to take form.
What are we doing today?
So we ended up getting this free park cruiser out on Craigslist. Park cycle on Craigslist. And it came in rough form, but most of the parts actually work. So we went over the wiring. The solar panel here seemed to be working, kept the battery running even though it's been there for, I don't know, 2 years sitting. And so that worked fine, went over all the wiring, got the gears working, and jacked up the front end and got the front tire going. And now we're gonna take it down Mina Street and freak some people out. So we'll see what happens.
Today we are engaging this beautiful community that we have right outside our walls at Freespace. So I am giving free Polaroid portraits to anybody that wants to come by and get a free portrait. I think it's important for people in this community to have a little token memento of themselves. It helps give them pride, some self-pride, and it's just a fun thing to do. So I'm out in front here with some, hung a big white cloth, and it's giving out some free portraits. We also set up a free library and chalkboard out there, so just an initial touch point for folks to interact with Freespace and start to think about ways that we can help create some solutions for mid-market.
My name is Aubrey Vora, and I am an illustrator for Whimsidoodles, which is coloring books for kids of all ages. I started with the idea that coloring is awesome and should grow up with you, and found that other people thought the same. So I create a variety of pages, some that give you lots to put detail into, and some that give you lots of blank space to fill in your own imagination with.
We're going to learn about fuel injection. It's an open source platform that allows you to take any car, new or old, whether it has fuel injection or not, and then program it yourself. So it gets much more efficient fuel delivery, and it's also, I got about 30 miles to the gallon on this car, which is kind of surprising. So that works out pretty well. So keeping these cars out of the junkyard is important, you know. And you really look at how these hybrid cars are made, and you see like where all the components come from. It takes much more out of the earth to actually go build one of them than does you to keep one of these things on the road. It's pretty weird to see the diagrams. This is like where like the mercury for the battery comes from, where all the components come from. They're shipped from here, they're manufactured there, they're brought here, they're all assembled. By that time, there's so much CO2 that comes off the process. It's actually better just to keep one of these things running than it is to go buy one of those cars.
The group got together and decided to extend the lease for an additional 30 days at Freespace. But where would they get the money? Crowdfunding. A campaign was organized. It wasn't easy.
We're here tonight for our fundraiser, and we've been here for a month, and we're so excited to have you all here to help us get it through another month.
And they didn't think they would make it.
If you guys could pull out an extra $10 or $15 or $7.50 or 35 cents, I would really appreciate that. And I know that all of us on this team would really appreciate that.
But they actually pulled it off.
One more month! 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 One more month!
Wait a minute. What is crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is where you go onto the internet using one of various services and ask people to give you money. And they do. Sweet. After all that, at the end of 60 days, what is Freespace?
This is an amazing experiment in what civic hacking can look like in the United States. So San Francisco, as you know, is a huge tech hub. It's a really cool place, but you don't necessarily sometimes think about the other parts of civic hacking. You don't just have to be a software developer to participate. And really, there's no agenda. They didn't plan it out. They're just inviting the community to come forward, to contribute their talents, their resources, and their time to change their city.
Well, we set out to do a 30-day experiment that was Freespace. We got the $1 lease, But after 10 days, it was so exciting, and we'd seen so much happen, and we knew there was even more. We decided to extend it to 60 days. Freespace alpha prototype is to a close after June and July, but we have so much momentum. We were just on the cover of the Chronicle today, which is, you know, the best San Francisco newspaper. We were on the Examiner last week, 2 days ago. We were at the White House on Tuesday. We were at NASA on Tuesday. We were at Nancy Pelosi's office on Monday. We met with the UNICEF, the Department of Labor, all of these different groups just this week. The last week in July, our 8th week in existence is Freespace, so we are certainly not going anywhere. We don't know what it is. We've spent all of our operational bandwidth and resources and all of our passion and hard work and everything just to keep this space going for 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we need a chance to process and to think about what we want to do in our next phase. I know it's going to be exciting. I don't know what it is because we haven't had a moment to take a breath. So it's going to be exciting to call this grand experiment to a close and a success on our own terms and incubate and come out big after that.
So my background is as a community organizer, and I recently got my MBA in sustainable management, and the way that I've been drawing both of those experiences together is by doing community development work and economic development work for the city of San Francisco, specifically in the Central Market and Tenderloin districts, which is where Freespace is located. So for me, this was a really beautiful example of how development can happen in a really positive way and how community building can happen in a way that brings together communities from all across the socioeconomic spectrum. And I've been working on bringing arts and arts programming to low-income communities, and so Freespace for me is a space where artists from anywhere can come and offer their talent. Not just artists, people from anywhere can come and offer their talent, and it's available and open and welcoming for everyone if you're living on the street or if you're living in a really high-end new condo. And it's a bridge between those communities and brings them together in a way that I've never really seen before in all my years of doing organizing and community development work.
Well, so I've heard and I've asked the question a lot, like, what is it for? And I get the idea of civic hacking, and I love the idea of a temporary space for lasting change. I love that idea so much, and I think that the current social climate in San Francisco is so privileged in a way that is patronizing and dishonest, and it makes me really angry. So I had to come and see for myself. What I think so far is that, you know, 60% of the projects I've seen are beautiful and really noble and loving. And I think the good intentions and the kind hearts and good minds of people that want to get together and do something positive they need to be nourished. Their thirsts need to be quenched because we need that kind of love in this world more than we need anything.
I see this as a movement, yeah, most definitely. You know, like this right here is like, I feel like even though if you silence this space, there's going to be 4 more spaces like this. That's even if people open up their homes. That's even if like a homeless kid or whatever, you know, have an idea. It's a seed that's going to germinate and hopefully go everywhere. What I hope to see come from a space like this is revolution. You know, and revolution doesn't mean like, pick up your pitchforks and storm City Hall. It means social change. You know, we got to get over this whole, like, it costs money to, like, make change. It doesn't. You know, it starts with seeds like this. But the revolution, I say, is like, it should be a creative revolution. You know, that we're sick of, like, this corporate machine that says the only value you have is through your money. The only value that you have is like what house you have and how popular on Facebook you are.
Nothing's free anymore, and it's basically a home for some people now to come and be with people who are practically family, and it's a wonderful place.
I feel like Freespace set forward a movement that was inevitable, a cultural phenomenon, a collective consciousness moment for people that may have not experienced something like that before. Everyone who's been here, I think what keeps bringing them back is when they're here, they kind of take a step back and observe something that's bigger than them. it kind of diminishes your ego while you're here and reminds you of what's real and what matters. I mean, this has been the most transformative experience of my life, to be honest. And I hope I can facilitate that for others and hope others can have access and opportunity and community like I did.
What was accomplished at Freespace in my heart, and just from what I've seen and experienced, was the community that was built through people caring about something. San Francisco, I feel, is it's a tough place to find any space at all, and especially to find a space where the motivation is pretty much the motivation of the space, and without money, and take that stuff away, and it's a huge challenge. And what happened here is they were able to build a community around the space, and it just kind of blew everybody's expectations as far as I could tell, totally out of the water.
This is the most amazing community of people that I've ever seen get built, and spontaneously happened in 60 days, going from idea to creation to amazing accomplishment after amazing accomplishment. Just moving forward and pushing and hacking and creating things faster than I've ever seen happen before with anything else that I've been a part of. It's been inspiring to myself. I've seen it inspire other people. I've seen people's lives been completely shifted from the moment that I met them in the space to the time that they have been digging in and helping and creating now. People that had no idea what to do who now spend every day here creating art or contributing or volunteering. And it has received so much support from outside of the community that's been a part of it, even people who haven't been to the space, that have just heard about what we're doing or have heard the stories from the people that have been here. It's inspired them to want to create their own free spaces or just learn how we did it so they can share those stories that they hear with other people. It's a very telling story about how technology, and if we're looking at San Francisco as a new job creation market for new industries that are primarily based around software, and creating virtual communities that everybody's now getting involved in that are actually displacing people from physical connection. They're creating these places where you can interact and you sort of feel like you have a connection to other people, but you're not getting the same exchange that you get from face-to-face interaction and contact. And this is something that we see in our community, not just through Freespace, through Digital Detox, through other events and people that are associated, that they're all working on how do you create these real human connections with people. And just by the sheer amount of participation that came into this and the people that came through the space and how scalable this seems to be, it's showing that there's definitely a need for this, that you need to bring people together, you need to provide them with a space that they can gather as a community.
Freespace is a physical location. It is a community. It's a project. It's a party. It's a celebration. It's a gathering. It's a haven, a refuge, a schoolhouse, a framework. But Freespace is not limited to any of those things. More than anything else, Freespace is an idea that will continue in your mind.
So it's hi. Here we go on another adventure.